Welcome to the show, Tracey.
Hello.
So, what is your clean date?
September 5th, 2022.
Okay, so you got 2 years now.
Almost 2 years.
Congrats.
Thank you.
So, what was going on September 4th of 2022?
A lot. I was
I want to hear about it.
in Kensington. I was almost losing my arms because of the drug I was injecting. And I was just done. I finally had gotten to a point that I couldn't. It was either kill myself or do something different. And I finally decided to do what I thought, not kill myself, basically. And I've reached out for help.
Yeah, I mean, homeless in Kensington is no joke these days.
No.
It was your before and after picture that got my attention.
Yeah, I was a wreck. Like, I literally am that addict that I live to use and use to live. I literally thought I was going to die a using addict.
We have the same tattoo. I have it on the semicolon.
Oh, listen, since I've gotten clean, I've gotten so many tattoos. I had a bunch before I got clean, but they're just addicting.
Yeah, I had one when I got clean. I got clean in Los Angeles.
Not
And I'm from South Jersey. I'm from Audubon.
okay.
Yeah, so like I'm literally a stone throw away from the Wall Whitman Bridge. It was at the end of my street.
Yep.
And I only had one tattoo when I got to Los Angeles. And then I met a graffiti artist who did tattoos in her front yard in Venice. And we would always do AA meetings in her front yard, and she would give out free tattoos to people in sobriety.
Fucking
So,
right. I love that.
I had one. I came back with 17.
You back in South Jersey now?
No, I'm in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. It's like southwest of Scranton. It's like an hour from the Poconos.
Okay.
In the middle of nowhere. We're known for like our fair, and Bloomsburg University is what the town's known for.
Okay.
So I like it. I met my wife who lived up here, and she had a kid from a previous marriage, so it's not like she could move anywhere away from him.
Yeah,
So I moved 30 times during my addictions, like over 5 states, 30 times. Like I just kept moving with myself and bringing my problems with myself. So now you're in Kent. I want to do an episode with someone from Kensington and someone from Skid Row and talk about the differences, because I feel like they're kind of similar, except one has better weather.
Yeah.
How long were you in Kensington for?
Well, I mean, I was out there using and going there every day since 2015. But I ended up out there homeless. I only made it out there 8.5 weeks on the streets. So not, I don't know how people like do years, honestly. I made it 8.5 weeks, and I'm just grateful I got out.
Yeah, I mean, because losing your arm, that reminds me of like what's the name of that movie? Oh my God.
Requiem for a Dream.
Requiem for a Dream. Thank you.
Yeah.
My music in the beginning of the episode, the music is a guitar riff of their music that plays in that movie, because I love that movie so much. I was blanking on the name. That music is so haunting in that movie. It's perfect for the ups and downs of addiction.
Excuse me. Sorry.
But yeah, you almost lost your arm like he did lose his arm.
Yeah. I had been like I've been an addict since I was, I started smoking weed when I was 13 years old, but it just kept on getting worse and worse and worse. But when the opiates came in, I think it was like 2004, 2005, I started taking perks. And what's crazy is the first time I took a perk, I threw up. I hated it. I was codependent. The guy I was dating, the next day, he took another perk. So I'm like, give me one. And he's like, why are you doing? He's like, you threw up yes last night. And I was like, I want to be fucked up with you. And I just continued doing it. And then I developed a habit, obviously. And
so are you from Philly or are you from South Jersey?
Like South Jersey, Philly, like I lived in both. I moved here. I'm like a Navy brat. I moved all around the country. With my dad and my mother, but ended up in Jersey because my family's from Jersey and Pennsauken. Then we moved Pennsauken, Maple Shade, Sicklerville, Washington Township. Um,
I used to get my dealer lived in Washington Township.
yeah, Washington. Interesting.
The last 2 years of my addiction, I was addicted to opiates until 2018.
Okay.
I have a new clean date because of benzos and weed.
Mm,
But I was driving from Lancaster County to Washington Township 4 or 5 times a week, 2 hours each way,
wow.
because I couldn't find pills where I lived in Pennsylvania. I would live in the middle of Amish country.
That's crazy that you didn't go to Kensington.
Well, I had somebody who was reliable, and I was so addicted to blues
Okay.
that it's all I wanted. I didn't care about heroin. I didn't care that it was cheaper. I was a functioning addict, so I had a job. I was able to afford $200 to $300 a day because I had a really good job.
Wow. That's
So I was,
why I switched to heroin because I was addicted to Oxy, then the blues, and I couldn't afford it because I had a crazy habit. And it was like one day I was around the wrong person, and he was like, "Here, try this," and I was like, "No," and I was like I was taking him to Camden at that point, and he's like, and I was so sick the second time I was taking him to Camden, I knew he was getting heroin. And the second time, I couldn't meet up with my 30 dealer. And I was like, "So, what's it like?" And he was like, "Here, take 2 bags." And that was when it was over for me. I did it like I just tried it once, and at that point, I was sniffing everything. And in my head, because I wasn't putting a needle in my arm, I wasn't a junkie. I'm not that, like
yeah,
at
I
that.
can relate. That's how I felt too. I was addicted to snorting. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't matter what it was. I was addicted to snorting. I always say I go to NA, and I always say my addiction was more of what.
Yep, that is me because, bro, I even sniffed Perk 10s like with the towel on it.
Me
See,
too.
like what is the point of that? But I did it. You know what I
I,
mean?
I remember 2009 Super Bowl. I was like 3 months into my addiction, and we couldn't find 30s. And we found someone who had a script of fives,
Oh,
and we bought the entire script, like 90 of them.
yeah.
And we figured, well, if we do like 15 of them, it's just like doing 430s or whatever the math was. And we ate a bunch, and then like we snorted these giant lines because it
Yes,
was filled with Tylenol. Like it was so fucking gross. I never touched a five
so
again.
breathe, and it's horrible. But I did that. I think many people that I know that sniffed stuff that were addicted because it's like it's all an addiction in itself. And I was addicted to it. And I was like, well, I got this many, like it was tens at the point that time. And I was like, fuck it. I'll just sniff. Like I'll take one so I'll feel better. And then I'll sniff it because I had that addiction. Just like when, after I put a needle in my arm, like it was like once I hit myself with that needle, even though like, yes, it was in my body, but it was like once I like got it ready and I knew that I was going to be able to use, like get high with that needle, I like felt better in a sense. It was crazy. And like, that seeing the blood come into the rig is, I think of it today and it's disgusting because it's like I can't even fathom it, but like that was me. I was addicted to everything.
Well, we romanticize things. You know what I mean? That's why you're taught in rehab to write a breakup letter to your addiction.
Mm.
I'm not sure if you ever had to do that, but I had to write a breakup letter.
I mean, I've been to like this last one I just went to was my 7th, and I had been to it, but each time I went, I never I was never serious. I thought the drug was the problem. Like if I get away from the oxys or if I get away from dope, like I can smoke weed or I can drink. But then I would get out and I would either go drink, and then that obsession, like, fuck this ain't enough. I don't want to drink this tequila. I want to get high off fucking dope or pills or whatever it was. And it was enough. It's never enough. Like, and I have found in recovery, it's not the drugs today, but I can still misuse things that aren't drugs, like shopping. like I have, if you saw my room on how many shoes I've bought, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm just like, oh fuck. Like I can't,
Tattoos.
yeah, tattoos.
That one looks really fresh on your left arm.
Yes. So I you know, part of my story is from the trank that I was using that like I said, I almost had my arms amputated. So I had these, like on this scar, where this scar was, underneath this scar was a big I mean, underneath this tattoo is a big scar. And then underneath this one, you can kind of see, like right underneath here
Yeah. Like rough.
is a phoenix rising from the ashes, is what I got for that one. And then this one says warrior. And I was very self-conscious about my scars because people stare at them. I'm grateful I have my arms, you know, because I should have lost them. But it doesn't stop the feeling that I would get when people would look at them because they weren't too pretty, right? And so I was getting very self-conscious about it, you know. For like the longest time, you know, I would sit there and remind myself that so many people had been amputated by the same drug that should have taken my arms, but that only lasted so long. Not that I'm not grateful. I absolutely am that I have my arms, but that that judgment that you feel. And I was at work one day and I had this client and he saw my scar and he's like, that scar is disgusting. And I was like, and I wanted to like dig into him, be like, and say this mean stuff to him. But instead, I was like, that wasn't really nice. How would you feel if someone made fun of something that you were very self conscious about? And he just looked at me and he was like, and walked away. And from then, it was like, I want to get rid of these scars. And I found like I was asking different tattoo artists, and because the scars were so big, it wasn't like it was just a small scar. You know, it was, they're bigger. And I couldn't find anyone because they normally don't go over scars. And then I found this guy and he had done some tattoos not on my scars, and I was like, "Hey, you know, would you go over this scar?" And he was like, when I went to his apartment, his house, he was like, listen, he's like, I've went over tummy tucks. I went over scars that were like smaller. I've never went over something quite as big. He's like, so this would be a journey for both of us. He's like, if you're willing to take this journey, then I'm all about it. So
That's
I
awesome.
and I just had faith, and I think they're both gorgeous, and
Yeah, so do I. They look awesome. That
absolutely.
it reminds me of, so I said how I got a bunch of tattoos in the front yard, and I was self-conscious but more about my size. I'm a bigger guy.
Yeah,
And I figured if I fill my arms up with tattoos, it'll take the people from looking at my size to looking at my tattoos.
uh, I
Um,
guess that's the things we think, right?
and there was another tattoo artist that used to come to the meeting, and he specifically would give free tattoos to people that had self wounds. What are they called?
Oh, like the cutting.
Cutting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he would go over them and hide them for people who had those wounds
Oh,
and
that's.
those scars. Yeah. Okay, so let's backtrack again. You're 13. Did you discover drinking first or weed first?
I was hanging out with my sister and her friends, and I was 13. They were all 18, 17, 18 years old. And I just thought it was cool. And I wanted to do what they did. And then that obviously progressed. I mean, I was at 13, I would go to Kensington with them and I thought we were just getting weed. And at that time, they were getting crack and, you know, harder drugs. But I was just smoking pot at that point. And I remember when I was 13, I tried crack. So I was like, let me, finally, I had found out that they were going to a different block and what they were getting. And I was like, let me try it. And none of them would let me. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, let me try it. And I remember I tried it and I hated it. I was like, what do you people like about this? Continued smoking weed. And then, you know, I was drinking like any normal kid. And then,
I like that you.
not that it's really normal, right? Um, and then I got to be like 17, 18, and just the people I was hanging out with. And then I started with the ecstasy and the cocaine and doing the harder drugs. And so it was like every weekend, or like we had a summer of Heineken. So we call it like, it was like, like grab a Heine for me. And then it was a summer of rolling, and we would go to Philly and go to the clubs and roll, like go to Space. And it was,
No, is it just you and your sister? Do you have any other
I
siblings?
have an older brother. He is not, he's good. Like he like doesn't do drugs, alcohol. He can like drink and like not fucking go rob someone. Not that I drink when I rob I mean, not that I've robbed someone when I drink, but I know where it'll bring me if I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm the baby, and it's my two older siblings. And I always looked up to my sister and what she was doing, I wanted to do. And I don't blame her, because I did what I did. And I was dating this guy, and he had done oxys before. And so when the perks started coming around, and this was when they used to call them bananas. So this was in like the early 2000s. And
Bananas were the old ones, and the fat white ones were called school buses.
yeah. And we started selling them. We got them really cheap, and we were selling them. And then instead of making profit, we started taking our profit.
Yep.
From that point, I just was taking perks and perks and perks, and then I was addicted to it before I knew. And I started going to doctors and doctor shopping, and I was still running out. And my mom was on Percocet, so I would like steal them from her, and she would only take like a half of a five. So my justification was like, oh well, mom only needs a half, so she has a script for 120. I'll take 60, 80. Like, she don't need them. And but she
Question. When you were doctor shopping, did you happen to go to a place in Maple Shade?
No, I went in Gloucester Township. There was a guy in Camden, and there was a couple where like I got some scripts from like random people I knew that. Oh, hold on. All right. And
All right. The only reason I'm asking is because you said you lived in Maple Shade for a minute.
yeah.
Um, I went to my doctor, was in Maple Shade, and at that guy, it was like out of a house.
Oh,
And instead of getting a referral from another doctor, you had to get a referral from somebody who was already a patient there, and to
oh,
make sure you were like not a cop or something like that.
that's crazy.
And it was $150 cash per visit. No insurance was taken, and you would go there once a month, every 28 days,
Yeah.
and he would say, "What do you want?" Like what? And I would get 120 30s and 120 bars. And
Right?
there
It's
was one in Washington Township that I knew of also. My buddy didn't have a car, but he had a doctor who would write him scripts. He was getting 180 30s a month, and the doctor got in trouble for writing that many out.
yeah,
So he switched him to 120 30s and 60 dilaudid.
like so great, so great. No, I had another doctor that was on. Oh my gosh, it was like right out of Cherry Hill on Springfield Road, I think it's called, or Springdale Road.
Springdale Road, yeah.
Road. That was like right at there in Marlton Pike that I used to go to. There was like 3 or 4 of them, and like this was before, not before technology, but before all the pharmacies were
We're
connected.
talking to each other. Yeah, it was in 2011
Yeah,
when
so
all the pharmacies started talking to each other and keeping records. Before
yeah,
that, it was the Wild Wild West.
absolutely. So like before that, like I remember getting a script from this guy. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna like he had a prescription pad, and he's like, I'm gonna give you this, go get a script. And I mean, luckily it's the statute of limitation. Like they can't like
Yeah.
really long time ago. And he like wrote this script out, and I went in. I remember the first time I was so scared. I went into the pharmacy, and it was like, he was going to give me, I think it was like 20 or 30 30s for doing this. All I had to do was walk in there, but it was like, I didn't realize that that was a federal charge. That could be, you know what I mean? And, but I did it. That's
Yeah.
addiction. I did not care because I was so sick. Like I was willing to do whatever I needed to do. And that was in, I'd say, what, 2008, 2007, like maybe, no, a little bit before then. It's crazy. And that was like right before, I went from fives, tens, and then I made the jump from tens to Oxy 80. And
Okay.
they were the real Oxy 80s, not the
Yeah.
OP they have now. Um,
I
and
remember the old ones.
yeah, that,
You scrape off the coating with like a little razor.
yes. And that literally, that started shit. I mean, it was already started obviously with the fives and the tens. The monster was awoke. But once the oxys came in, it's illegal heroin. And I started doing that, and I was spending like between 30 and 50 depending on, who was selling them a pill. And in my head, I was like, well, I'm not doing heroin, like, so I'm still better than you.
Yeah.
I judged, even though I was doing this shit myself, right? And so I went from that, and then in 2009, me and my ex were doing so many Oxy 80s and then taking Valium at night and not sleeping. And that was like for like a week before this happened. And my ex fell asleep at the wheel, and this was, oh my gosh, what's that road in Evesham? It's right near, do you know where that shop right, and I think it's a KFC, it's Laurel Road, and
Where
it's in
what
actually, it's like
where?
in Blackwood.
I think I know what you're talking about. I used to work in Blackwood. It was near Blackhurst Pike.
Yes, there was like a shop right there and a KFC. But anyways, we were coming in from his job at like 1:30 in the morning, and from after us doing oxys all day and Valiums at night, he fell asleep at the wheel, and he drove into a pole at 50 miles an hour, and I ended up in a coma for a month and suffered a brain injury, and my life completely changed from them. They wrote, now I was getting written scripts, from doctors. So it was like okay for me to take, the opiates now. And but I was still taking what I got, plus I was getting more, and I thought my life was over, um because I couldn't drive. Um I had to learn how to talk, walk. It was just, my whole life I thought was over. Instead of seeing that I needed to be grateful that I was alive, or that I wasn't laying in a bed where my parents had to take care of me for the rest of my life, I saw it completely opposite. I wasn't grateful at all for anything. Um, so I kept doing the things I was doing. And then finally, they took me off the pain meds, and I knew I had a problem. And I remember the first time, I never went to a treatment center. I went to my aunt's out in Ohio, and that was, I don't even know why I did it, because like I went there, and it just ended up being bad. I took a bus out there and ended up taking a bus back, and was like, fuck that, like I'll just smoke trees or whatever. I'm not going to just do pills. But of course, I did no work, so I came right back and started doing the same thing. And
And people don't realize how much you can get fucked up on Valium. I didn't
yeah,
I had a like I've been 6 years clean from opiates since April 25th, 2018.
yeah,
And I haven't drank since February 28th of 2020. But when my dad passed last June, I wasn't processing, his death at all. And I had medical marijuana, and I was smoking as a medicine. I wasn't going overboard. It was as needed. And then when he passed, I started smoking every day, all day. And then I manipulated my psychiatrist to give me Ativan. And then I manipulated him to up me to Valium. And then I realized that you can snort Valium.
yeah.
So I started snorting Valium, and just my wife was like, you have way less pills than you're supposed to. You're not clean anymore. You're like, what are you doing? And I cut them out completely. I'm on no benzos, and I cut out weed too because I made that a problem. And so now I'm 5 months clean from everything for the first time. I haven't gone this long without smoking weed since I was 13, and I'm 38. So
Well, that's
yeah, it takes what it takes, but I didn't realize how fucked up you can get on Valium until I got prescribed them.
Yeah, I was out of it. I was never a benzo person. So that, right there messed me up a lot. And from then, I was still better than certain people because I wasn't doing heroin. Like I was doing opiates and oxys, and I wasn't doing heroin yet. And I started going to NA meetings, and I honestly, at first, when I went, I thought I was going to learn how to use drugs successfully. Like, I was like, all these people, like, they do drugs, like, they know how to use right, right? And obviously, no, I didn't learn that. But I ended up still finding the wrong people in the rooms because you can find it, anything. If you're
Yeah,
going in there and not trying to change your life, you will find other people that aren't trying to change your life. And that is what I found for a really long time. I did meet some amazing people, in the fellowship, back east, that I still talk to this till this day. And but I wasn't ready. It took me a lot more pain and almost dying. I continued to go to meetings, and in from 2014 to 2015, I was taking Suboxone, and I would use once in a while. Like okay, not once in a while, like once a week, I would get high, and I was like, um, that's good, right? Like I'm not getting high every day, so like that's good, and I collected a year key tag and spoke from behind the table for like how the program works. Like I was on Suboxone, which whatever MAT, if it helps you, like I don't give a fuck, like whatever helps you make your life better. But I wasn't
I
using,
agree.
you know, I was using Suboxone or methadone, and then I would get high. So I wasn't like staying clean. I was just taking that on days that I wasn't able to get high. And right after I got the year clean, I started. It's crazy because the night I got the year clean and I shared, we all went out to eat afterwards. And when I was on my way home from that, I was calling my dealer, like, yo, wanting to celebrate. And I got drugs. And at that point, the dude I was getting shit from, he was selling like pills and heroin. And I was like, let me try that, and I tried that, and then that got real bad real quick, and because it was cheaper than the pills, and I couldn't afford the pills, and after a little while, my friends in the rooms had like an intervention for me, and they were like, Trace, we know you're getting high, um you need to get help, and I'm like, no, 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 denying it at first, and then finally I was like, yeah, I'm getting high, and I went to treatment in Westchester, and it was like this brand new treatment. I was the third client. I got a scholarship there, and there was this guy there. He was the first client, and he was really cute, and I had never gotten into no rehab romance because normally I was like, you're just as fucked up as me, like no, but this time I did. And I ended up hooking up with this guy at treatment, and he had been homeless in Kensington right before he came to that treatment center. And I remember before I left, I was like, if you ever, end up, you know, losing your place and you like you're going to be on the streets, like please call me. I will come get you. Well, within a week, he ended up like getting high at his sober living, so they kicked him out, and he called me. And me being like, I'll fix you, like, not even thinking about myself, I went and picked him up. And that was the beginning of an 8.5 year relationship that, and again, I don't blame him. All of everything that happened, I willingly did this shit. But, I started dating him, and from then on, we started going. I'd already been to Kensington, but we started going to Kensington every day in 2015. And it was literally, when I say every day, it was jump in the car, go to Kensington, go to whatever block had the best shit, and then leave, go home. And then the next day, get in the car, go to Kensington, whatever block had the best shit, go home. It was every fucking day. And
It's exhausting.
it really is. And at that point, I had never put a needle in my arm, right? That was like a junkie, you're a junkie if you put a needle on your arm. And this guy was an IV user. And at first I was like, no, you can only sniff it. Like, I don't want to be with you if you're going to be, if you're going to shoot it. And then one day he was like, I just want to do it once. And I was like, I have a lot of codependency in
I
my,
was just going to say, yeah, you're codependent. So if you're seeing how high he's getting, you're like, well, I want to try to get that high
but
too.
the thing is, it wasn't even that I saw him get high. I was like, if he, like, this is what my head told me. If he sees me put a needle in my arm, he loves me. He won't want to do it, which is crazy because it has nothing to do with love. You know what I mean? But I still didn't understand, all the everything of addiction. I still don't with almost 2 years clean. Um, So I did it. And when I tell you, I fell in love with the needle from that first fucking second. And from 2015 until September 4th, 2022, I put a needle in my arm every day, multiple times a day. And back then it was still heroin. But then after I started injecting, it changed from heroin to fentanyl. And that was a crazy change. Like, it was like you would do it and you would just nod out right away. And that lasted until a little bit before COVID, happened. And then when COVID happened, was that was like, it was already bad, right? Before then, we were going up to Kensington every day, spending every dime we had, no money, just that's literally what our life was going to Kensington, getting the drugs, coming home, going to Kensington, getting the
Were you
drugs.
working?
But
Were you working?
from that car accident that I was in, I was on disability because I suffered a brain injury.
TBI?
Yep. So at that point, the when COVID, right before COVID happened, probably about 9 or 10 months, my mom died. And I was, obviously I was using, and my mom was my best friend. She was my biggest enabler also. And it took me getting clean to be able to actually voice that, because I felt if I said she enabled me, that it made it seem like she wasn't a great mother. But she did what she did because, like, what she, could do. She didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And so when she died, obviously my addiction got a lot worse. I didn't know how to handle anything. And I wanted to die, but I didn't, if that makes sense.
It I heard in a meeting once, and it really stuck with me was I didn't want to die, but didn't want to be conscious anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that year, from when my mom died until the beginning of 2020, I don't really remember that year. I just literally numbed out the whole year. And I remember in the beginning of 2020, my dad, because I was staying with my dad, me and my ex boyfriend were staying there. And he was like, you guys need to go to treatment. I can't fucking do this anymore. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I went down to Wilmington Treatment Center in North Carolina, and he went to somewhere near the Poconos, some state funded thing up wherever, somewhere near there.
Williamsport?
Living Grin, or
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a friend go to one in Poconos, probably the same one.
yeah. And so we both went to treatment, and then he got out a day before me, and he went back to my dad's, and my sister was still in active addiction, and at that point, and when he got home, she was like, hey, can you bring me to Kensington? So what do you think happened? He got high. And I don't blame either of them, because we're all addicts, right? And I was jealous. I was like, what the fuck? I'm on the phone with him like, you got high? Like, are you kidding me? But I was jealous. I wasn't, yeah, I was mad, but I was like, because I wasn't there getting high with them. And then I came
Yeah,
home.
FOMO.
Yeah. And I came home, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna do dope. I'll smoke crack, because that's better, right? Like, it's crazy, right? And that was my plan. Like, I was gonna successfully smoke crack instead of shooting dope. And I did that, of course. I went and got crack, and it was great, and but it wasn't, right? At that time, um I was taking naltrexone. So I guess I could have gotten high, but like I wouldn't have done anything. So I
Yeah.
was crack while I was on naltrexone, saying to my boyfriend at the time, please quit shooting dope. Because I wasn't doing dope, so like you shouldn't do dope, but like let's smoke crack because that's better. And that lasted for a few weeks, and then I stopped taking the naltrexone, and of course, the medicine wasn't in my system, and the cravings started coming back. And one day, we were, kicked out of my dad's house. So we were staying at this grimy ass motel. And I was like, he had went to Wawa, and I was like, I want to get high. And he had went to Wawa, so I did like two scrapies of a bag. Because I mean, I don't know if like in Philly, Camden on the East Coast, they come in bags. Like out here in St. Louis, they come in beans, they call them. I've never seen one like myself because I haven't used out here. But they, instead of coming in like waxy baggies like they do out east, they come in like pill like capsules. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. So I like scraped two bags at this point because I was like, I'm just gonna do a little bit. And when I tell you, it was like a grain of salt. It was like nothing. And I got it all ready in the needle, and he comes in the door and he sees what I'm doing. He's like, what the fuck? No. And I was like, listen, I'm either going into the bathroom and getting high, or I'm doing it right here. And he's like, what the fuck? All right. And at that point, I had a drawer next to me, and in the drawer it was like a junk drawer already in this crappy motel that we were staying in, and there was Narcan in there, but it was all the way at the bottom. So I opened up the drawer and I like found the Narcan, and I threw it to my ex, and I was like, "Here, do something with this." And then I tied my arm up and I shot up, and I OD'd. That was the first time I had ever OD'd in my life, and he wouldn't have known where that Narcan was if I didn't grab it out of that drawer and throw it to him. And he Narcan me once and it didn't do anything. So after, like he did the chest rub and all that, he gave me another one, and he started doing it. But he had called 911 because he was like afraid I was going to die. And I started coming to. And when I finally came to, cops were walking in the door at this motel. And I'm like, "Ooh, I'm fine. I just sniffed coke." Like, not even like thinking, like, don't say you did any drugs. I'm like, don't tell him I did heroin or fentanyl, whatever. And they tried getting me to go to the hospital, but I was like, no. And instead of being like, oh my gosh, I just overdosed, I should not use anymore, I won't be sick tomorrow because I only used once, automatically I'm like, now I have to get high. Like now I can't not get high because I already used. So now I'm fucked. Now I got to get high.
That's the one thing I don't like about 12-step programs is you get in your own head if you have a relapse.
Mm.
Because once you think you reset the clock back to zero, then it's like game on. I might as well continue to get high because I'm already at 0 days again. So what's the point?
What's the fucking point? And I was just, so from then, um things got really crazy. They were already crazy, but then I started, using every day. Now it's like, now I can't take the Vivitrol, the naltrexone, so fuck it, I might as well get high. And I started putting a needle on my arm every day, and at that point I was loved smoking crack. So now I was smoking crack and doing the what I thought was fentanyl. But right at that point, the fentanyl was changing in Philly, and it was a lot stronger. Like you would do one shot and it would like knock you out. And like fentanyl, once you get like, the build up that tolerance, it doesn't knock you out. It just it makes you normal. Well, this stuff was knocking us out. And we like people were saying, "Oh no, it's carfentanil." So we're like, all right, cool. We're still going to the same blocks. And then all of a sudden my arms started getting these like it was like my skin was looking like it was like black and crusty, but they were like smaller. But I'm like, what is going on with my arms? And I'm like thinking like it didn't even look like an abscess, but I'm like, maybe it's just like an abscess and my arms just doing something weird. And At one point I heard, like, I had this person that was like on the block when I was talking to them. They were like, oh, that block puts meat tenderizer in their dope, don't go there. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to this block. So I started going to a different block, because like each block in Philly has like different stamps. So like this block was Uber, this block was Adidas, this block was Cardi B. Like it was like different names for like their block. So I went to a different block, and this shit was even fucking better. And I started using it. Well, within about 4 to 6 months, these wounds were still there, but I was so sick. I just continued putting this needle in my arm. I didn't know what was going on. I would Google these wounds, and then crocodile would come up. Nothing about xylazine. It was all crocodile. And I was like, oh my gosh, my arms are going to melt off. And then one day I was at this block where they sold it was called Adidas. And I saw this girl that had these wounds that looked like mine. And I was like, what is that? And she was like, oh, it's trank. And I'm like, what the fuck is trank? And at this point, like, no one knew the drugs we were doing. We just thought it was carfentanil. And she's like, it's trank. It's like just a better drug. If you go to Prevention Point, which is a harm reduction in Kensington, they'll help you take care of your wounds. And I didn't understand anything, but I went there because I was scared of like what was happening to my arms. And I went there, and they said xylazine trank. And again, I heard trank and I thought ketamine. So I'm like, okay, like people do that. Like that's just what I thought in my head. And I never, when I did Google it, nothing was online about it. There was like two articles that were from Puerto Rico, and it was all doctor terminology, and I didn't understand any of the wordage or anything. Um, and I tried at that point, once I found out that it was an animal tranquilizer, that it was for elephants and horses. I tried going to different blocks that were just fentanyl. And I got like a bundle, which is 16 bags of it, in a bundle. And I got one, and I remember doing the whole bundle within like an hour. And within 20 minutes, like I was high, but I was still sick. It was weird, because like I didn't feel better, but I knew I was high. Like I was like, I felt fentanyl high, but not better. And I'm like, what is going on? And then I was talking to someone when I went down there into Philly, and I was like, asking people like, have you experienced this? And they were like, yeah, you're addicted to the trank. You got to go back to Adidas or back to Uber, and that's the dope that you need to do. And again, just like the OD, instead of being like, what the fuck this, I went right back to Adidas and right back to Uber and right back to the other blocks that had the trank. And I was doing that. And then all of a sudden one day, my I was, I was shooting up, obviously. My needle, the whole needle got one big blood clot, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm dying. So I looked at the guy I was dating. I was like, I gotta go to the hospital. And I went there, and they said, Tracy, you're septic, you need a blood transfusion. And I didn't see the severity of it. I just was like, oh cool, whatever. Took taking pictures of the blood, and I got the blood transfusion, and then they had to move me up from the ER to a room, and they were going to give me another one. And I from the doctor and the nurse that came in, they treated me like I was drug seeking. And all I wanted them to do was help me take care of my arms. And I remember looking at the nurse and the doctor, and I was like, your Oxy 80 wouldn't do shit for me right now. I just wanted you to take care of my arms. And instead of staying there and advocating for myself, I ripped the IV out and I left. And I went back to that slimy motel that I was staying at. And from there, it gets even crazier, because when your skin is dying, it is extremely painful. So when I wasn't high, I was in so much pain. And there was one day I was sitting there, and I was crying in pain, and I was like, I have to do something. I need to cut this shit off. And it sounds crazy to me now, thinking of it through it with a clear head, but I grabbed a towel and I laid it across my legs, and I went and grabbed toenail clippers. I went and grabbed alcohol. I cleaned the toenail clippers off, and then I started cutting off the black necrotic skin on my arm with the toenail clippers because I was in so much pain. And I didn't see anything wrong with that, right? Like, I was so sick that, like, I just wanted the pain to go away. And I couldn't depend on a doctor to help me because they were just going to treat me like a drug addict because I caused this. You know, I did this to myself. Like, they're just treating me like I feel. So, why am I going to go there to get just to feel worse about myself? So, from that day, which was, I'd say, probably the summer of 2020 until September 4th, 2022. I continuously cut off the black necrotic skin. And that's why both of these tattoos, underneath each of them were big scars. Um, and many people lose their arms because of this drug, but I was cutting off the dead skin and taking care of it. I would keep them wrapped and I would put medicine on them that the prevention point, the harm reduction place would give me. And I've been told by a few doctors that I saved my arms from being amputated because of what I did, even though I caused a lot of damage on my arm. Like, this arm, my right arm, I remember in the beginning of 2022, it was so close down on my arm, I had bone exposure on both, like right here and right here on my arm. I had my bone showing. And, but again, I kept on using. And, the black, I would see my tendons, which I didn't know because I'm not a fucking doctor. It was like killing my tendons. And I started cutting the black shit off of my tendon, and I cut my tendon in half. So like this hand I can go like that, but this arm I can't lift it. Like, it can go like that, but I can't, like, that's the most I can go. I can't go like my arm doesn't work. It only like half works because I cut my tendon and did some damage while I was high to not be in pain. Um, yes, I saved my arms from being amputated by doing this, but I don't recommend it. Um, if someone is listening or watching this that is going through, using a drug, because I didn't know that it was in the drug that I was using until I was already addicted to it. In the sickness of addiction, I just kept on doing it. Um, I just recommend, if anyone is listening that is, going through that and has the wounds, to please advocate for yourself, because I caused myself a lot of damage by letting that judgment and that treatment from a doctor and a nurse keep me from going and getting the help that I deserved.
Yeah, and you have to advocate for yourself. I remember um, when I had COVID the first time, I was so dehydrated, I had to go to the hospital to get fluids. And it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. I went there to get fluids. And cut to 12 hours later, I was so dehydrated, I had to go back there.
Mm,
And the nurse questioned me. She was like, "Why are you back so soon?" I was like, "Because I'm sick and I'm dehydrated." And it's the only way I can think to get hydrated again. She's like, "Are you sure? Because I seen your chart, you're a former addict." I'm like, "Why would I come to get IV fluids?"
yeah,
And like, that makes no sense. I was like, if you look at my chart, you'll also see that I was addicted to opioids
yeah,
and not, you know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? And she ended up giving me the fluids.
yeah,
And I lost my gallbladder in recovery
yeah.
because you know how it is when you're withdrawing, you start throwing up bile.
Oh, yeah,
I started throwing up so much bile that my gallbladder was 99% ineffective by the time I got rid of it.
oh,
Um, and while before I went under, I said to the doctor, "Listen, I'm a recovering opiate addict, so please don't give me anything that's going to make me sick."
yeah,
And he said, "Okay, you'll be fine." And then I woke up high as hell, and I said to the nurse, like, "Hey, I feel really high right now." She's like, "Oh, it's probably just the anesthesia." I said, "No." I said, "I know what this is. I'm really high."
yeah,
And the doctor came in and he was like, "Oh yeah, you looked uncomfortable, so we shot you once with fentanyl and once with the Dilaudid."
Oh,
And I'm like, dude, what
really?
the fuck? And
Yeah.
he was like, well, you said you haven't used in 3 years, so you should be fine. And it was an outpatient surgery. I get into the parking lot and I start throwing up. And I
Yeah.
threw up for 18 hours. And I had to like hold a pillow to my stomach where the incisions were so they didn't burst open from all the vomiting.
Oh my.
And I was so pissed off. Like,
Wow.
you know what I mean? It happens. So my question is, how come this treatment center out of 7 worked for you so well? What happened?
Well, I think it was, everything that happened beforehand. Even though it was only 8.5 weeks in Kensington, the things that happened to me when I was out there, um, scared me. I had been through a lot of shit before that happened, but when you're sleeping on a sidewalk and you want to leave, you don't want to get high, you want to do something different, but then you hear sample and your body, like, it's like there's like this fucking demon in you that like can get you up and to walk to wherever you got to walk to go get that drug. And the things I was doing while I was out there, um the way I felt, um I never I've never been someone that believed in suicide. I feel like with suicide, you take the pain off yourself, but you put it on all the people that love
Yeah.
you. But that's where I was at on September 4th, 2022. And I remember looking around and seeing the homelessness, the drug dealers, and all the people, just the sadness and the drug usage. And like, I was like, I either need to kill myself or do something different. And I went out to this treatment. I came out to this treatment center in some St. Louis, Sauna Lake, and I was loved from the door. When I walked in, it was I was told I was coming out to St. Louis, but it's like a town like 45 minutes out of St. Louis, and it's called Ditmer, and it's like boondock fuckingville. So I'm used to city, right? And I come out there and I'm like, where am I right now? Like, you guys brought me out of like my city, like my home where I lived my whole life, and I'm in this boondock with like horses, and like, what the fuck is going on? But the chick that met me at the door to do my admission, she brought me into her office, and I was so scared because my sister-in-law just dropped me off, and I have no family in St. Louis. I knew not one person when I got out here, but this woman brought me into her office, and she, I just broke down. And she was like, I'm in recovery myself. She had almost 3 years clean, I think, at that time. And it just was like, wow. Like, and she started sharing some of her story with me, how she had been homeless and how she had been through things like, some similar things that I'd been through. And I felt like not more comfortable, but like there was like this little glimmer of hope, but like, all right, like that'll get me through tonight, right? And I went to my room, and then I met like my treatment team, and um I had a peer support specialist, and which is someone that's been through addiction, got, out, and now, is in recovery. And this woman shared her story with me, and she had been through a lot of similar things. And now she was working in a treatment center helping people. And the treatment center I went to had a lot of people that are in recovery that are now helping people and showing other people that there's a way out. Like my trauma therapist, she was in recovery herself, and I had went to college and got my degree in psychology, but I, ventured off into using drugs really hard after I graduated. So I just never thought I could do it, and it was kind of getting that hope from so many people. And for the first time, instead of going to treatment and thinking about my end date, like, oh, okay, I have 14 days and a wake up, is like what I would do at every treatment center. I would like count how many days I had left, and I would put it on the calendar, and like I would literally like, okay, looking forward to the day I got out. When I was there, I started doing something different. I was taking suggestions, going to group, being honest. Because I think I had experienced things, out on the streets, and with this relapse, and it wasn't even a relapse because it was just a never stop,
A
you know.
continuation.
Yeah,
It was a pause in the action.
exactly. And I finally was like, I knew I needed to do something different. And when I was in treatment, I was gonna go back east because how can I be away from my family? You know, like I need to be near my family. And then I remember my peer was like, why not try something different, Trace? Why not just move into our sober living for a few weeks? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I can live out in St. Louis. Like, you know, I'm a Philly girl all the way. Like, I don't think so. And I was like, I remember one night just sitting there, like, why not try? Like, I was 39 years old. You know, my life was like, it was shit. You know, like, there was nothing good in my life. So I was like, you know what? And I told my peer, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll move into it, in sober living. And then I got out of treatment, and I remember going to my first meeting, and I had been to Narcotics Anonymous before, but I didn't do anything that was suggested. I was like, oh, steps? Why write on steps? Oh, be honest with you? Why do that? You know, oh, call people? Why the fuck? Those people don't want to talk to me. You know, I was letting those negative thoughts literally run my life. And I got out, and I remember I went to a meeting, and I raised my hand and I said, hi, I'm Tracey. I'm new to St. Louis. I'm looking for strong women in recovery. If I can get a phone list. And then I put my hand, like, and then I stopped talking, and then I got a phone list at each meeting I went to, and I started calling people. And I started building up a network of women and men. And it was, I am so grateful for Narcotics Anonymous. You
Me
know,
too.
I know other people, they might not need to work a program or anything like that. I have found such amazing relationships in the program that I've never had relationships like the ones I have today. Um, People that genuinely care about me and love me, that just want me to get another day clean, but help me um, grow. Since 2012, I lost my license. Since then, I gotten drug charges, all types of charges. I didn't have my license since 2011, hadn't had a car, obviously. I lived at home with my father forever. I came out to St. Louis, and after I got out of treatment, you know, I remember I had all this court that I had to do back, and I did it. And it was so overwhelming because it was like thousands and thousands of dollars that I owed the state of New Jersey and the state of Pennsylvania. And it was like, how the fuck am I going to do all this? Like, this is too overwhelming. And I talked about everything. Like, if I was going through something, I didn't keep it in anymore. I talked about it with people, and they listened, and they gave me their, suggestions or how they went about it. And like, I just had friends like Trace, just pay $20 to this ticket, pay $20 to this charge, pay $20 to this, and you'll get through it. And I remember thinking, how the fuck is that going to happen? But I did what they said, and I started paying money on each ticket and each charge. And today I owe the state of New Jersey, the state of Pennsylvania, not a fucking dollar. Um, and you know how in New Jersey, I don't know if you know, but like if you lose your license, you have to pay the surcharges. I owed so much money with that. I paid all of that off. I was able to get my license out in St. Louis. At that point, I had started working at a Preferred Family, which is a treatment center out in St. Louis. So I was saving up money, and I was able to go buy myself a car. Things are like, they're not where I want them to be, but like, when will they ever be, right? Like, we'll always want better. But I know today it will get better as long as I continue putting one foot in front of the other, and trying.
Yeah, and I love NA. When I first got sober 6 years ago, I was more an AA guy. I went to a couple NA meetings. Ironically, my favorite NA meeting was Thursday night at 7 o'clock in Santa Monica. And guess what boulevard it was on, or guess what avenue it was on?
Where?
Kensington Avenue.
Oh, that's fucking great. I love
Yeah.
it.
And it was called Jocelyn Park. It was like a park with like a meeting area, and it was a huge meeting, like 100 people every Thursday. It was an hour and a half long. Great speaker,
I love
great shares, and I loved it. But I was Cali sober,
it.
and NA kind of thumbs up, you know what I mean, noses up about that. But AA was more accepting.
Yeah.
So I went through the steps in AA, but I went through them too fast.
Mm.
And obviously I relapsed.
Yeah.
And so this time I was like, I went back to AA in person, but I didn't feel like I could tell my story accurately and what I was going through because, like I said, it's been 4.5 years without a drink.
Yeah.
My problem for me landing back in AA wasn't the fact that I was drinking, it was the fact of the drugs.
Yeah.
And as you know, in the NA literature, alcohol is a drug, period.
Yep.
So I can talk about alcohol. I can talk about drugs. I identify as an alcoholic and an addict in that meaning.
Yeah.
I mean, Gamblers Anonymous also.
Yeah.
Um, I do that every Saturday at noon,
No.
and I introduce myself as in JD. I'm a compulsive gambler. I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. If you name it, I'm probably it.
Yep.
Um,
Absolutely.
That's how I introduce myself because I share it every meeting. Every meeting I'm in, I do NA every day at noon. It's a meeting based out of Providence, Rhode Island. Um,
Oh,
and
so
my
awesome.
sponsor just celebrated 30 years the other day.
Oh, I love.
I just got my workbook off Amazon, so that just came in the mail. So
Nice.
I'm looking forward to doing a deeper dive into the steps this time, as
Yeah.
opposed to getting like you can be through the first 3 steps in 2 hours in AA. You know
Listen.
what I mean?
I like this time I was like, NA doesn't work. I think I'm gonna do AA because like I tried NA since 2011 and that shit don't work. But like I didn't realize I didn't do anything that Narcotics Anonymous suggests. I would be like, oh well, I'll do this, but I won't do that. I'll do this, but I won't do that. And we can't do that. I can't make the program what I want to make it. The program is so fucking simple, but we make it so difficult for ourselves. And
We get in our own way.
yeah, and I just met some amazing people in the fellowship that showed me that it can be done. You know, I just finished my step 12 in the Narcotics Anonymous workbook. And I'm going to go over it with my sponsor in the next couple of weeks. But I love the workbook because it goes so much deeper into Tracey. I can look into so many different things on why I do what I do or why I think the way I think, when I was going to try to do the AA steps, and not that I'm talking smack because I'm
Yeah, no, neither am I. I'm not trying. Whatever helps, whether it's
at
Matt, whether it's AA, whether it's NA, whether it's a Facebook group,
whatever.
whatever is TikTok recovery, whatever is working for you. My wife does recovery Dharma,
Okay, no,
um, and she loves that. She does it every day at 9 a.m. and a couple other times throughout the week.
awesome.
Um, I have a girl that I interviewed for this show a couple times now, and she started a group for people that are sober that are Swifties.
Ah,
And she gets a huge following on Facebook, and they have a little community of people that are Taylor Swift fans that are in recovery.
oh, that's so cool.
And they break down her songs and they do all this stuff, and it's called Swift Steps.
Ah,
And yeah, it's pretty cool. So this is why I enjoy doing my show, because I can talk to people that have a bunch of different avenues of recovery,
absolutely,
and we can, at least try to reach one person who is still struggling. That I put out as many episodes as I can because I want somebody to connect with at least one episode.
absolutely. That's why I am so open about my recovery
Me
because
too.
I did not think that I could get clean. I could not see a day without putting a needle in my arm. I hated myself. I thought my higher power, I thought I was born to be a junkie, that I was that junkie on the street that parents would point out with their kids and be like, don't be like that. I thought so low of myself. I hated myself. I didn't know why I was here. I blamed everything bad that happened in my life on my higher power. It wasn't the things that the choices that I was making, like why are you doing this to me is what I would say. I remember walking down Kensington Avenue and I was crying and I had sunglasses on and it was night. And I was like talking to my higher power, which I choose to call God. And I remember like just saying, like, why are you doing this to me? Like, why can't you just let me not fucking put a needle in my arm? Why are you having me live this life? And like, I see it today. I was given two choices: go get help and do something different, or continue doing what you're doing. And I continued every fucking time to do what I was doing and not do the right thing because it was too much work, or I had to do things that I was uncomfortable doing and I didn't want to do it. I wanted the easy way out, although doing the things I was doing wasn't really easy. But I thought, it was easier, having to feel feelings and feel all the trauma and things that have happened in my past was a lot, but I'm grateful that I finally gave myself that chance to do it. Yes, I have bad days. They come, but I've built a network of women in my life that when I'm going through something, I can reach out to, and they help me through it, or hey, Trace, let's go to a meeting, or how I'm always trying to live in a solution. I don't want to fucking stay in the problem today. Because I lived in the problem for so many years that I don't want to stay in that no more. Sometimes it takes longer to find a solution, but there's always a solution in everything. It's just how willing are you to continuously try to find that solution.
Yeah, it depends on how much work you want to put into it, because you get what you put into something, and
Uh,
if you're willing to put in the work, you're going to see results.
yeah.
And it's really hard to stay clean some days, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be worth it because it could be much worse. And I know it's a cliche, but you always say your worst day in recovery is better than your best day in addiction, or whatever that is.
Yeah. I remember, since I got clean, I had 10 months clean. So this was last July. And this woman I met my first day in treatment, um, she became like a sister to me. She was my best friend. And she was coming to meet me at Six Flags in St. Louis. And she was on her way. And I talked to her on the phone. She's like, I'll be there at 6:30. And then she stopped answering her phone. And I'm like, I kept on calling her. And then I was with another friend at Six Flags. And so we went and rode a ride. Well, we're on our way. We're getting ready to get on this ride. And all of a sudden, my friend calls. And I pick up the phone. And I'm like, Emily, where are you at? And it wasn't her. It was this guy. And he's like, hi, this is Detective so and so. Your friend Emily was in a bad car accident. A tire came off of a truck and went through a window. She went without oxygen for 7 minutes at least. She's on her way to the hospital. And I went right to the hospital. And because, we were really close, her family let me go into the ICU and be with her. And when I tell you, losing my mom was hard, but I was under the influence. Feeling all those feelings clean, I wanted to run and get high. And that's when Narcotics Anonymous saved me, because I started making phone calls and telling people where I was at, and telling them what was going on. And I had friends bringing me food up to the hospital, constantly calling me, Tracy, let's go to a meeting, trying to, help me. And if it wasn't for those people in helping me, from the people that I knew from the fellowship, I might have went and got high, and I'm grateful that I reached out, because that was, the first really hard time that I went through in recovery so far.
Well, you were taking suggestions.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's one of the things that they suggest is to reach out when you're having a problem. That's the whole reason why you get a phone list.
Yeah.
This way, in situations that you were in, you can find a way out without getting high or drunk over it.
And that was
And,
did that before, got high over
yep.
everything.
Yeah, but we got high because it was a good day or because it was a bad day, whether it was raining or whether it was snowing, nice day. You always found a reason to stay high, but you never found a reason to stay clean.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Well, I'm like thrilled that you got 2 years now. I'm glad you're working a program.
Thank you.
It's not easy to take a look at yourself and put a mirror up and, critique yourself and
Absolutely.
go through those steps. You know what I mean? It's not an easy thing to do, or else everybody would do it. And the steps are for everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can easily change. I had a sponsee once that was trying to get over his ex, and I replaced the word alcohol with her name.
Ooh.
And I feel like it's almost a codependency thing where you have to say that you're powerless to blah, blah, blah. And my
Huh?
life was unmanageable because it's such an interchangeable word in the steps.
Oh,
And
yes.
and I know this for a fact because I've done CA, I've done AA, I've done NA, I've done GA, I've done Marijuana Anonymous. I've done all these different meetings, and they're all based on the AA's original literature from the 1930s, except for one word has changed. Everything else is the same.
Everything else is the same. Yep. Absolutely.
So I'm just grateful for NA. And I might be reaching out to you to be a speaker in one of the meetings.
Absolutely.
We have a daily meeting at noon, Monday to Friday, and
Absolutely.
it's a great group of people, and they're always looking. I love this format because I'm obsessed with Just for Today.
Mm-hmm.
I love Just for Today meditations,
Yeah.
and we start off with literature, burning desire, and then somebody reads Just for Today, and then somebody shares on it, whoever the speaker is, for 15 minutes based on Just for Today.
Yeah.
And then we go around and everyone gets 5 minutes to talk about Just for Today.
Oh, I
And
love.
I love the format of that meeting. I
Yeah.
love Just for Today. It's such and Daily Reflections is cool too, the AA book.
Mm-hmm.
I found when I was in rehab and sober living, we read them every single morning, and then we went around the room and talk about what it meant to us.
Yeah.
And I still do that to this day. I have Just for Today saved in my Safari app on my phone. I read it in the morning. What's that?
I said I have it in mind too.
Yep. And it's just a good way to start the day. It kind of centers you and it gives you a little bit of hope for the day.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for sitting down and talking. That story is never easy to live and relive, but you're a living testament is that, you can get through some of the hardest shit without getting high or drunk.
Fucking right. Absolutely.
So congrats on 2 years.
Well, not yet. Not this coming Thursday, but the following September 5th, I'll have 2 years.
Well, when this gets released,
Oh yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to release it on your 2-year anniversary.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It happens. And because once I saw that was your date, I'm like, well, now I like releasing episodes on people's anniversaries if I can help it.
Absolutely.
Because it's a good way to celebrate.
You told me this when we originally talked, but we'll just blame it on the drugs that I did over the years.
Well, thank you again, Tracey. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too, honey. Bye.
Bye-bye.